Welcome to Gray e-learning. In this tutorial, I'm going to discuss about how to configure a console password for a given network model as shown in the figure. Assuming that you have a network model with the three routers, they connected as shown in the figure, and assuming that we already learned how to configure an host name for all the routers, how to set a enable password, and how to set an IP address for all the interfaces, and you already and also how to set a static routing configuration, and also you how to set a telnet configuration. Assuming that in case you don't know the steps, please watch my previous videos. There I clearly mention about how to configure an host name, how to configure an enable password. And another one video I clearly mentioned how to configure an IP address for all the interfaces and how to set a static routing. And also I can explain how to configure a telnet password for remote login. So today we are mainly focusing about the how to set a console password. Console password is the console means it's whenever your router where you directly connecting, locally connecting it. Normally routers you connect locally by using a laptops. So through how you are entering into the router through the console cable or console port. So we want to put in a security for aspects. So we have to set an enable the especially console password. So once you know the console password, then only you can log in into the, or you can enter into the router. So how we can configure this console password in all the three routers for local access purpose. So for this purpose, for this is an example shown here, how to configure in the console password in the first router, that's router R1234 or router 0. So you have to enter into the configuration terminal. Then you have to use the line console 0, then log in and password and put any password. I'm being an example, I put as a gray example. The same configuration console password configuration will enter into other three routers. Then so let me start with the Cisco Packet Tracer, our network design model. Assuming that this is your model, we already done all these basic configurations. And before I'm starting with the console configuration, let me check what's the current status of the configurations. So you say, you just enter into the first router and use the command here. First of all, let me exit, and it will be the user. So initial mode, and even if you put exit, it will be the mode. Initially, you will be, once you connect with the console port without any password, you will get this window. Straight away, once you press enter, without asking any password, you will be able to access into the router. Now we have to go to the enable mode, and we will ask you to enter the enable password. Now you see the show running configuration. In the show running configuration, you can see we already set a host name, and we already learned how to set an enable password. Then we already learned how to set an IP address for the interface. Then already learn how to set a static route in the router, and also you learn how to set a telnet password for remote login. So this all we already set in the router, and the same way we'll check the second router and just enter the enable and enter the enable password and show run and running configuration. So from the running configuration, you can clearly see that's a host name is there, and we already set a host name. We also set the enable password. We also set two interface IP addresses, and we also set here the telnet configuration, okay, for remote access. But in this router 2, there is no static route because it's router 1, which is directly connected with the router 0 and router 2. So there is no need to configure any static routing on router in the router 1. And let me just check the configuration of router 2, and let me just go to the router 2 and starting from the beginning. So once straight away, since we didn't set any console password, straight away once you just connect the console cable, you can enter into the router, and you see here, and enter enable and put the password of enable password, show running configuration. So it will show there like same like the other two router, what is the host name, and we set the enable password, and we also set an IP address. There's only one interface, and also we set a static routing, static route for the router 0 because there's no direct connection, and we also learn how to set the telnet password. Now let me start with the first router 0. So we'll just enter into the configuration terminal, config terminal. We want to set the console passwords from the config terminal. So we'll start with the the command line console 0. Then use the command login. In case you don't know what's a command, use our instruction line console 0 password. What's the password you want to set it? So let us just enter, and we already entered the login. Then the next one password, you can put any password. Time being, for simplicity, I'm putting as a gray everywhere, and exit. Now you see here, once you exit from the configuration, now you are in which mode? In the enable mode. Once you exit from enable mode, you are in the. Now you see here, it's the first time like how when you're connecting with the console cable. The moment when you connect with the console cable, and before you're entering into the router 0, it will ask you to enter the password. This password is known as a console password. If you know the console password, then only you can log into the router. So yeah, you already log into the router, and once you enter into the, then you can, all the remaining will be safe. Like you can enter into the enable password. Then if you already set up the telnet, you can remotely log into other router. Same way, let me configure the console password in the second router, and initially there is none. So let us just go to the config terminal and line console 0, then login, and after that password, and put a console password as a gray and exit. So we just exit from the configuration. Now we are in the use in the enable mode, even exit from enable mode. So yeah. And the moment when you're connected with to the router one day, since we set the console config password, so it's asking to enter the console password. So I have to enter the what console password you entered. After that, you can just enter into the enable mode. Then you can do all the operations. So the same way, let me configure the console password from the last router. So let us just go to the configure terminal and line console 0. Then you have to use login. The next line we have to put the password. What is your console password, and exit. So that's all from the console password. And let me exit from the enable mode. The first time when you're entering, it's asking to enter the enable password and the console password. After that, they're asking to enable password. Now let us check what is our configurations. So you see here, we already have host name, enable password, and Ethernet IP address, Ethernet IP address, and the static route. And this is the extra we just learned is the console password. Line console 0 password is gray, login, and also the previous tutorial we learned how to configure the telnet password. And that's talking about this tutorial, how to configure the console. In the next tutorial, you're going to learn about how to configure the dynamic routing protocol, like RIP routing protocol. Thank you for watching this tutorial.